Fire up your photons and force fields because Strange New Worlds just turned the holodeck into a 1960s whodunit straight out of the original series playbook. It's life imitating art with a dash of murder, mystery, and just enough comedy to overload the impulse engines. Well, hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, today we're talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 Episode 4, which is entitled Space Adventure Hour. This is our holodeck episode of the season, returning to some of those classic episodes of holodeck adventure like we had back in TNG, with the Sherlock Holmes or the Dixon Hill routines and everything that they did back then. It's definitely a return to that sort of style of storytelling. We had some cool callbacks to past episodes and styles. And today we're going to take a look right through the episode and see all those little Easter eggs and references and everything and see what the episode had to offer. So let's get into it. So the episode starts off like a return to the 1960s. We get Chapel in a very 1960s Star Trek style. We've got music that's very similar to the original series music score. And the first thing that struck me in the opening scene here is the bad sound quality. Sometimes they focus a lot on visuals when you're doing one of these sort of hark-back type episodes, but they actually made the quality of the sound and the dialogue sound like, I don't know, 1960s microphones or 1960s recording styles, which had that imperfect sound about it compared with what we're used to listening to in today's TV. So I thought that was really period accurate. That almost struck me as more impressive as the production design and the costumes and everything. We see Kirk and Ortegas, and Paul Wesley's doing his best William Shatner impersonation in this opening. He's got the cadence right. He's speaking in that staccato style that Shatner made famous. Paul Wesley even says in one line of dialogue, he's known for his diction. And it's all really cheesy and over the top, which is great. It's doing its absolute best to poke fun at the original series and that 1960s aesthetic. We get a really bad alien puppet with like puppet sticks coming out of its arms where you can see it and it looks all hokey. Obviously back in the 60s, this sort of stuff would probably be considered revolutionary. It's a bit like the original Gorn. By today's standards, now we look at it and go, oh, it's a cheesy man in a rubber suit. But back then it was, oh, this is impressive work. So we've got aliens with puppet sticks coming out of their arms and everything, which you can see reinforces that 60s aesthetic. And we get a different opening title sequence with a voiceover for this show called The Last Frontier, which is very much inspired by original series Star Trek, which actually replaces the standard Strange New Worlds opening title sequence, which is the first time we've ever had an episode without this in this series. We go back to normal Strange New Worlds now, and they're headed for a neutron star in the Cartolian belt, which the Enterprise is passing through. And we've got a bit of a meeting going on in the ready room. And obviously during those 3 months that the Enterprise was docked and undergoing some refurbishments and everything after the attack with the Gorn, the Starfleet engineers have installed a new recreation device on the Enterprise. They're asking Lan to put it through its paces, give it a bit of a test drive. The name hasn't been settled on yet. Pike mentions the word recreation room, which obviously is a hark back to the animated series when we saw a glimpse of this sort of technology being used in animation form. But number one quickly cuts him off there and says, no, not recreation room. I think we're going to go with holodeck. That sounds a bit cooler. So I love the fact that they've done a little bit of a hark back to animated series and referenced the terminology from that. But obviously very quickly dismissed it and go, no, let's just go with holodeck. This kind of technology doesn't seem like it's brand new for Starfleet. In fact, Lan references battle simulators, which sound pretty similar to the holodeck, but as she points out, they're normally situated on star bases and require an enormous amount of processing power to operate. But this is the first time we're actually seeing them on board a starship, maybe as a form of R&R, so that maybe starships can stay out there longer and not need to come home quite as often. Initially, when I heard about the holodeck episode, I thought, well, this is obviously going to be the first time it's introduced in Starfleet. Brand new technology, never been properly tested before, on a starship at least. And I kind of initially thought we're going to get this on a starbase or on a planet-side installation or something, because clearly the power requirements and everything would be massive to generate this sort of thing. And it's not the sort of thing that technology would present itself as being capable of operating on a starship just yet. But that is a very important point, which is what comes into the main plot of this episode. Can a starship run a holodeck? Does it have the power requirements to keep it and both the starship operational? And that's essentially what La'an's doing to see how it affects ship systems, as well as test driving holodeck programs and so forth. As a bit of a carryover from what we saw at the beginning of episode 2, we've got Spock and La'an continuing their dance classes. They're doing a bit of a tango. La'an is wearing a neck scanner to, I guess, help in send neural information, I guess, to the holodeck program that she's going to create to test this technology. And we're getting a bit of a feeling here that since episode 2, initially the dance classes were a means of Spock learning this from La'an to be able to implement it with his relationship with Chapel, but since it's pretty clear now that Chapel's moved on and has got something going with Corby, the fact that Spock and La'an are continuing these dance classes is bringing these two closer together. And I don't know about you guys, but some of these dancing scenes between La'an and Spock seem to have far more passion and more spark and way sexier than some of the Chapel-Spock interactions. And I love the fact that we are seeing a little bit of a softer La'an this season. I think obviously since her song in Subspace Rhapsody of how would that feel to not be so restricted, not be so restrained. And she admits it might be time to change her paradigm, because if she can only let go of the wheel and replace her fear with faith, she can feel free and really feel like she's flying blind. And how would that feel? To let go and be vulnerable. Her lyrics in the song in Subspace Rhapsody kind of say it all. As a child, La'an read a lot of detective stories with a character called Amelia Moon. There were sort of novellas written in the 60s. So she uses this as a basis for the holodeck program. Since this is the first time a holodeck's been put into use, they don't have detailed 3D scans and everything yet for holodeck characters. And the closest thing they've got to this is the transport pattern buffer, which they use to create holodeck characters based on the crew. I kind of felt like, oh yeah, it's a way we can get our main cast into the holodeck as characters rather than using a sort of a guest cast of characters. So I get the reason they've done that. And I suppose it's a good enough excuse as any. And the way La'an programs this holodeck program for her to be a challenging exercise is definitely a hark back to Elementary, My Dear Data. Almost a little bit too close in some ways. I'm going to get to that later on in terms of what exactly that is and how that impacts the episode. La'an and Spock enter the holodeck, and Spock gives a sort of Sherlock Holmes reference, which is connecting back to Data saying, the game's afoot. This very famous Sherlock Holmes expression from Arthur Conan Doyle that Data would say in this holodeck program. So linking back to that. All the characters in this program are obviously visual duplicates of our bridge crew. The murder mystery begins with The Last Frontier, which is a 1960s sci-fi TV show very closely based on Star Trek, the original series. And the characters are its production team. Una plays Sonny Lupino, who is an absolute Lucille Ball, who many people would know obviously was a big champion in getting the Star Trek original series up and made. Similarly, Pike's TK Bellows is a softly spoken gentleman, very similar to Gene Roddenberry's speech patterns, which obviously is a homage to him. The show was set to be cancelled and someone has murdered the host of the party. I kind of love the fact that we're getting a bit of a hark back to original series in the this Last Frontier show that's part of the holodeck program, but it's also this Agatha Christie style murder mystery set behind the scenes of a 1960s TV show production team. Before long, Una's character on the holodeck is poisoned. I love it when Paul Wesley's character asks Ortegas, is she dead? And she gives the typical, I'm an actress, not a doctor response. A McCoy classic. And La'an needs a test partner to help her with this program. So she ropes in Spock. Holo Kirk is the top suspect in the murder, and we soon find out that this holodeck program is putting quite a strain on the power systems of the Enterprise. There's power fluctuations going on. The holodeck is drawing a lot of power and causing a lot of problems, which Scotty soon finds out. Spock and La'an interrogate the Holo Kirk character, and then Holo Chapel. Good that Jess Bush got to use her Australian accent, I think, in this episode. I thought that was novel. And I think Mbenga was doing a British accent. And for that matter, La'an was doing an American accent rather than her usual British. So I think it's cool we got a couple of different characters doing a couple of different accents for their characters in this episode. Ortegas is interrogated and Pike's interrogated, who has the gut. They've given Pike the frizzy hair and the big glasses and a bit of a gut on him. It's quite amusing to see Pike looking like this in this episode. Spock and La'an compare notes about who might have done the crime, and a chandelier falls from the ceiling, cutting La'an's face with a piece of broken glass, where they realise something has gone wrong in the holodeck and the safety protocols are no longer working. It's kind of a staple of holodeck episodes, isn't it? The second you know there's a holodeck episode, you know at some point the safeties are going to be turned off and they're going to be in mortal peril. One of those holodeck episode tropes that happens every time. They can't end the program, they can't call for the arch. Scotty enters the bridge and confers with Uhura about communication with La'an and Spock, who are trapped. The stakes are pretty high. Spock and La'an must solve the case in order to end the holodeck program. And it's always the way too, isn't it, with these holodeck programs? The only way to shut them down when there's an issue is to get to the end of the story. All the characters in the program are fighting. Holo Ortegas gets stabbed. She's dead. Holo Uhura gets interrogated. But I love Uhura's rant in this scene, where she basically has a rant on Star Trek original series, how it affected people, what it was going to achieve, what it was going to do, and it would never get a chance to do that if the show was cancelled, and that's why this sort of whole murder mystery thing has happened. So I love the fact that she got an opportunity to talk about the origins of Star Trek, what it meant to a lot of people, what it achieved, and to mirror that in this episode. They find some film in the fireplace, which obviously is evidence, which was interestingly enough discontinued in the 22nd century, so I guess by then they switched to 100% digital. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is at a neutron star, the sensors are overloading, there's a massive power drain on the ship, this holodeck is sucking way too much power, and it's affecting the Enterprise and its ability to maneuver and its engines and everything. There's no power or anything to do stuff because the holodeck is just sucking all this energy. Scotty is somehow able to give them 30 seconds of power and they manage to escape the gravity pull of the neutron star with the help of Ortegas at the helm. Well, geez, she didn't last too long in the doghouse, did she? She's right back at work. And Scotty has to enter the holodeck as a character within the program in order to gain access and communicate with La'an and Spock. La'an and Spock watch this episode of Last Frontier, where they're watching the behind-the-scenes footage or the rushes of the episode. Holo Pike is given the bad news that the show is cancelled and enters with a gun. Spock gets shot. La'an hugs him. There's feelings there, feelings that have developed since episode 2, with Spock and La'an getting closer through the dance lessons and whatnot. It's good, but at the same time also feels a little bit rushed maybe. We've only had one episode so far in episode 2 where they've established this growing connection between La'an and Spock, and it's growing, but it's like a couple of episodes back Spock was still pining after Chapel, and it's maybe developing a little faster than is plausible. It turns out that Spock is the killer, who is a hologram and not the real Spock. This ending to me almost seems like the writers on Strange New Worlds are just constantly ripping off past episodes of Star Trek, and not in a homage way, but in a stealing someone else's homework way. It's a bit like in episode 1 of this season. We had them put the Gorn to sleep, the same way Data put the Borg to sleep in Best of Both Worlds Part 2. And in this episode, obviously we've got La'an making the mistake of programming the computer to create a holodeck mystery that's capable of giving a challenge or defeating La'an, not defeating the character of Amelia Moon. This is right out of Elementary My Dear Data, where Geordi gave the computer a command to create a villain that was capable of defeating Data, as opposed to a villain that was capable of defeating Sherlock Holmes. And I feel like La'an has done exactly the same thing in this episode. I feel like the writers of this episode have just literally cut and pasted the exact same dynamic. I kind of feel like this is bordering more on plagiarism rather than homage. The program ends as they finish the program, and the holodeck is deemed far too taxing for starships at this time. Yeah, obviously if it's going to completely cripple your starship and not make your engines work anymore, yeah, let's just maybe keep that onto star bases or something like that. Obviously it takes them 100 more years until we get to Encounter at Farpoint before the technology is got all the bugs ironed out in order to implement it on starships as a widespread installation. Una gives Scotty a pep talk about communication with the crew and working solo. He's part of a team now. He's got to work as part of a team, not just as an individual, and reiterates the fact that he's now part of the crew. La'an arrives at Spock's for another dance lesson. There's definitely some feelings and a sense of a bit more closeness and intimacy between these two, and the episode ends with them kissing. I suppose this is a byproduct of having 10 episodes in a season. We have to hit story moments much faster than we would if we were a season which had 22 or 24 episodes in it. We have to establish a connection in episode 2 and then have that acted upon in episode 4. Whereas back in the day, it might have taken 10 episodes for that romance to develop between La'an and Spock. Spock's whole relationship arc seems to be so fast-tracked and compressed, going from his wife to Pring to Nurse Chapel to La'an in what seems like a very short space of time. And for someone who's not an emotional creature, it's a bit of a stretch. I guess unfortunately that's just a side effect of having too few episodes in the season. I love the Last Frontier outtakes that play over the end credits in this episode. The bit that just had me probably laughing the most in this episode was the moment when Paul Wesley does the Riker leg over the back of the chair maneuver, and he like breaks the chair falls to pieces, and then he's ranting. Obviously the fact that Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, I love the fact that they put that little Riker sit-down maneuver in this episode, and the fact that it just completely broke the chair into bits, and that was hilarious. I loved that, laughed out loud. All in all, I enjoyed this episode. Again, it's sort of a bit of a quirky episode, and we're obviously getting a lot of quirkiness in Strange New Worlds this season, obviously with Trelane's appearance, and now the holodeck episode in episode 4. We know we've got a quirky Vulcan episode coming up in the season, and we obviously know from San Diego Comic-Con with the trailer that played for season 4, we've got puppet episodes coming up. A little bit too much quirkiness for me. I think I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was entertaining, but Star Trek is not meant to be a comedy all the time. Let's have a few more serious episodes that play for drama and make us think about social issues and things like that. Stuff that Star Trek does really well. We don't need this to be a comedy every episode. But that being said, I had a bit of fun. What did you guys think? Did you like this episode or did you not care for it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section and we'll get chatting about it. As always, be sure to check out my merch in the merch store. There's always a sale going on with massive discounts, so be sure to pick yourself up a bargain and help support the channel. I'll be back very soon with my next video. See you soon.